Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Spots of Love podcast. I am your host, Karan. It's been a little while since we've done any episodes or talked to new people. And there's been some scheduling issues with getting people on here, but we finally are able to connect with a guest that I'm really excited to talk about today. He's obviously a Barney fan, but also a creative, and he builds some of his own Barney items and things like that I hope to talk to him about today. And so let's just jump into it. Everybody, I'd like you to welcome Orian Dagger. Orian, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. We were having some trouble getting connected here over the last couple of weeks, but I'm glad that we finally are able to connect and actually officially talk to each other. We've talked many times over social media, but not sort of face to face like this. So I'm really excited to talk to you, man.
Yeah, me too.
Typically how we start this is I just say, let's start at the beginning. Obviously we're here to talk about Barney a little bit. Let's just start at the beginning for you. Do you remember how you were introduced to Barney or what that experience was like? And can you share a little bit of that with us?
Okay. I actually can't say like specifically how I was introduced to the character, primarily because like Barney technically has been a part of my family since before I was born.
Gotcha.
There was two other siblings before me that grew up with Barney before me. So really like anything that I had that was Barney as a kid was just hand me down from my siblings. It started with my older sister and then my older brother, and then it came down to me.
Cool.
And like all my tapes and all that, a lot of my old toys and whatnot, that all just was just hand me down from one sibling to the other.
Gotcha. That's kind of the same story with me, except I was born in 93. So the PBS series was only out for a year. But my brother was a fan of that. And so, that kind of got passed down to me. Obviously, that was still in the very beginning. There wasn't tons of videos and stuff for Barney yet. But it was kind of a little bit of a part of our family before I was born. But when I joined in, then that's when the collection of things just it stuck with me far longer than it did with my brother. But same story where it was kind of already in the family a little bit. Did you what era are you? I know you're probably the 90s era, right?
Yeah, no, like as far as growing up goes, like which era did I grow up with? I was born in 2000, so technically the Park era was just starting about that.
Sure.
But I grew up specifically with seasons 1 through 6, based on just all the tapes, just variety from here and there, with like a splash of Backyard Gang.
Gotcha. Nice.
Specifically, it was my sister gave it to me, was a tape, the re-release version of Waiting for Santa.
Okay.
That was my first exposure to the Backyard Gang.
Awesome. Yeah, that's the classic one. I think my intro to the Backyard Gang was Barney in Concert. That was the first one that I saw where it had like a different title that wasn't Barney and Friends. And then later on in the years, as I got a little bit older, I think around like 10 or 11 is when I started seeing like the really original, like the first 6, and that kind of thing. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Oh yeah. I didn't even realize as a kid, I didn't even realize it, but I technically got introduced to the 1988 Barney, the original Barney, before I even knew that there was an older Barney. I was in preschool, like back when I was still in diapers. Yeah. And for years I've had the faintest memory of the episode 3 Wishes, when Barney, I am so sorry, there's a cat coming.
No, you're good. Cats always like to come into the meetings.
Literally, I closed the door and my cat literally just walked in. I am so sorry.
No, that's okay.
But yeah, no. I remember like when they were playing jump rope and everything, and Barney fell over, got entangled in the jump rope and all that. And for so many years, I didn't know like that was a real episode. I almost thought that was like a fever dream going on there.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Because like it was so different. Like because it wouldn't be until like years later that I would have ever gotten any experience with, that Barney. So like. I remember for years I saw that at preschool and never knew where that came from. I always just thought my memory was just super fuzzy about it, and I just remembered it.
Yeah, I remember finding one of the old tapes on I think it was like at a Goodwill or something like that. And it was so drastically different, obviously, than what Barney was, that my grandma had or has an in-home daycare. So I would tell people that Barney was like the Barney that we know. It was like his dad, instead of it being the same person. Because they would always go, why does he look different? And so that's how I would explain it to kids. Is like, well, that's just Barney's dad. So it was like a story that I came up with that I stick with now, because he's obviously, his voice is deeper. The Barney that we knew sounded a little bit more youthful. So it was I think a little bit more believable to young kids that was like his dad and not actually who Barney was. But yeah, that's interesting. You said you were born in 2000. So yeah, right before the park era started to kick off and things like that. Do you have a favorite, do you have a favorite season, or home video of Barney that like sits above the rest?
I do. I think, like, okay, so I don't think I could have particularly, like, I don't think I have like a favorite season, only because like as a kid, I didn't grow up with a full season at all.
Sure.
But I definitely know my favorite episode of all time was from season 2. It was Red, Blue, and Circles 2.
Nice.
That one I really liked, and specifically one of the reasons I liked it was because I don't know what it was about it, but it was something about like how it was filmed, the choreography and the music all at that time, like just really spoke to me, and I never really understood why.
Yeah.
Like especially with that with the original version of the song "Wave the Flags."
Yeah.
I love the way that scene was shot, and it just like it kind of like I just love the music from that era specifically because like the music had much more of a presence to it.
For sure.
Like just like when you felt like that there needed to be a bit more hype to the music, like you feel the hype in it.
Yeah, Bob Singleton did a really, really great job establishing who Barney was through the music. Joe Phillips and the guys that came after, they all did great in their own right. But I think Bob Singleton just took it a little bit further with the way he did his music and the way he crafted things together. That just captivated you with everything. So yeah, I completely agree. I think I never really thought about it before, but I think the music from season 2, much like you, I think was some of the best music also. Obviously, Bob Singleton also did season 3 and those games, and all of that music was great. But there's something about season 2's music that just Imagine and Wave the Flags and My Yellow Blankie, all those songs that premiered during, and even the Everyone Is Special, the songs that we already know, there was just something special about that music in season 2 that I don't think ever was matched ever again throughout the franchise. So I agree with you with that.
Yeah, I mean it's great music. I mean honestly, like, and that's how I know like it was just this music was just way ahead of its time because like like in later versions of the music every note you could just tell like that the lyrics matched up with the notes.
Yeah.
But like listen to instrumentals of that older music, if you didn't have the lyrics, you couldn't tell what song that even was.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the thing. Like so if you were an outsider, you would never know.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, later in the years, they definitely started adding more of the melody to what the lyrics were in the music. That is definitely true. Yeah, I think that's something that Joe Phillips started to do. He was always great, I think, but when he was trying to create music, much like in the vein of Bob Singleton and those guys, in that season 4 through 6 kind of era, I think that's where his best music shined. But as you went on, like the park era, and then towards the end, you definitely the music started to become more complex. But then like everything had like that little like bell melody or whatever it was behind it all the time. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Let's see here. So let's talk about what you do. So I think a lot of people in the Barney community would know you from you building your own replicas of Barney plush. And not necessarily the toys, but the TV studio dolls. Actually, I got one from you. It's back here on the back shelf. I don't know if it's hiding back like right up here.
Yeah, I kind of see it. I kind of see it.
So I got one from you very early on when you were doing them a few years back.
Yes.
And so it's one of my favorites because I think what all of us Barney fans always wanted to have is like that studio plush doll that we could like call our own kind of thing.
Sure.
you started to build your own. What made you want to get into it, and how did that process start to learn how to build these dolls?
Well, originally it was I originally started like as a kid, like everyone else, I too wanted a doll from the show.
Mhm.
But as a kid, didn't have a lot of money and really like, growing up, of course, as a Barney fan as a kid, once you got to a certain age, of course, people looked at you kind of funny when people found out you liked Barney.
Yeah.
So, so the thing is, by the time I knew how to sew and everything,
Mhm.
I just couldn't. I got to an age where I just felt like I couldn't do it. So it wasn't until my little brother was born in 2012 that I saw this opportunity where I was all like, you know what? I couldn't do it for myself, but I could do it for him.
For sure.
So for his 4th birthday, I actually did like I built the very original one, my very first studio doll replica, and that was very different. Like originally, that was when I knew nothing about how those dolls were made. I knew nothing about the materials or
Mhm.
what was inside of it. Like I knew nothing, but I winged it. Like that was a thing I was usually known for. So my original doll was made completely out of just powdered foam, which was when like I took project foam from Walmart. I
Mhm.
drew out a pattern and then, cut in the foam, fold it, glue it, and then hand stitch the fabric onto it, which was just a normal fleece from Hobby Lobby at the time.
Oh, okay.
So that one I made for my little brother, and then, but I kept going with it. I made more than one eventually because me as an artist, I knew I could always do better.
Right.
So, and because like as the years went on, I found out more about that doll, about how it was made, what kind of materials it was made out of. And so I just slowly worked my way to try to get perfection. So like by the time I originally started my Instagram page, I was working on the 3rd or 4th one, which
Mhm.
was which was a 16-inch like dark purplish, because the other one was just way too pink. So I was all like, you know what? I'll try doing darker, see how that works.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even after that, I mean, that got me started. And when I just saw how many people just were really liking it, I just went in and I kept going just to see like how far could I take it? Could I really like see like if I could actually get it to pretty much perfection?
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that you said you were just winging it from the beginning. I think that's one of the things that like a lot of times we want to create something or we want to do something but we don't know how. And
Yeah.
so we talk ourselves out of doing it or talk ourselves out of trying to take a chance to do it. I think one of the easiest ways that you can learn how to do things is just by doing something, taking a step towards something. So the fact that that's how you started is just by I'm just going to wing it and figure it out. And now it's evolved so much. Each doll that you make, every time you make another doll, that as I see them on Instagram and things, they just get better and better. And I think that's what you want to do as a creative is you always want your next work to be better than the last one. That's how you know that you're still evolving and growing.
Oh yeah, like the actual process of building them has changed over the years. Where I
Sure.
believe the one you bought was back when I was still doing the patterned foam,
Hmm.
and um, you know, uh, but then like I think after that was when I got a 3D printer. I started printing out parts and whatnot, and eventually, then later on, it became a hybrid between patterned foam and 3D printing. And now I've gone as far as trying to go back completely just traditional, like the original prop was, and just try to build it as close to the original prop inside and out.
Gotcha. Yeah. Do you have do you still have all of the versions that you've made, or have you used parts of old ones to build new ones or things like that?
Okay. So the very first one I made um actually was taken apart and then put back together like 3 different times.
Oh, okay.
For 3 different versions. Actually, the my very first post on Instagram was actually just made up of the remains of the first one with like a
Wow.
few new parts and everything, and it kind of went from there. But for the most part, every single doll that I've made has just been like from scratch.
Wow, that's crazy. That's
I
really cool.
don't have a lot of them recently. Unfortunately, I did have to sell the majority of all my dolls that I made over the years.
Oh, gotcha.
But they've all gone on to like good homes. One of them actually went to a public library to be in the kids section.
Nice.
That was, I thought that was actually really interesting. Like Barney at a public library.
Yeah, that's cool to have. You don't see that often at all. So that's really cool.
So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that really is. Let's keep talking about you building things, because you started with these dolls. The series dolls. You also did some of the backyard, like try to make the original Backyard Gang doll,
The 1988 Barney doll.
Yeah, but now you've evolved into building a full costume.
Oh, yes.
Why? I think I know why you built one, but just share what started the idea of graduating, or maybe elevating from building these in comparison small dolls into this giant almost replica costume from the show with moving mouth and all those things.
Okay, well, the thing about that was that I originally did not intend on building that thing at all. There was I remember, because the dolls had gotten so popular that everybody was asking when are you going to do the costume and whatnot? And I never really had a straightforward answer, except for just being it wasn't the fact that I didn't want to build it, but it was more there was just so much I did not know about that costume that I didn't feel like I could build a good one. Because I feel like that thing was just so big that I didn't feel like there was room to make, to make 5, 10, 20 different costumes to get it right.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So what happened was that I was just, looking across Instagram one day. I was just scrolling on my phone, and came across a post of someone selling 2 of the original Barney skulls.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes. And so I hopped on that as soon as I saw it. And those things went quick. I mean, literally someone already bought one of them from me. But I managed to get a hold of the second one. I went ahead, it was right here in San Antonio. Because apparently this was traveling. Apparently it was going from one guy to the next. They were just trying to get rid of it. But for some reason it was on some weird traveling route, going from one person to the other. And I was like, well, that's weird, but it was coming through San Antonio. So I was like, I got to pick this thing up now.
Yeah.
So I picked it up, and because I had that head, I now knew that gave me a base to start. So I knew more about the scale. I knew more about the functionality, how that thing was put together. And it was from that one part that it was able to I was able to just kind of figure it out. I asked around a little bit. I asked one of the original prop designers, Jess Nelson at the time, who helped build that original costume. I tried David Joyner. And I think even Bob, early on, but he didn't have anything. He didn't really know much about that. So I was like, okay. Gotcha. But I went ahead and I just took my time. I just did as much research as I could. And then I just went from there, a 3D model of the body in the computer, where I converted it into a 2D pattern, and then just put that all together. Built a PVC skeleton that literally sits on my shoulders, but it rests both on my back and my chest. Cool. And it has pieces that go up that actually that screw into the back of the head. And that holds the head up, which it has to be really sturdy material, because that head alone is actually really heavy. It's about a 40-pound head, not 40 pounds. It is really, it's more like almost 20 pounds.
Yeah, I believe it has weight to it because you have the bars and all that in there to be able to make the mouth move and that kind of thing. It looks really, really good especially for a first time building of a costume like that with the moving. A lot of people, they're building replicas of Barney costumes, but they don't have the moving mouth and that kind of thing. So to build it that close to the some of the original ones, it looks really great from the videos and things that I see. So that's really cool and it was cool following your process as you started doing it, because I've always followed your Instagram, so I've seen as you updated the process of getting it to where it's at.
Yeah.
So that's really amazing. I really like how creative you are with that. Do you have any, I know you said with this one, it wasn't a plan to build it at first. Do you have any plans or ideas to continue to enhance that costume or build
The
any other ones?
I actually, yeah, there is. The thing is, over time, especially over this past year, unfortunately, the costume took a little bit of damage, and I don't have those original. I don't have those original files that I built that suit out of.
Oh
So I
no.
did have to go back. I had to go back to the drawing board, and I decided just to go ahead and try to improve the sculpt that I
Yeah.
originally did, where I my costume lined up so well with the original 1994 Barney. So
Mhm.
that was my main base for reference and whatnot. So
Yeah.
I went back and sculpted that thing, finding all the screenshots I could to get the proportions and everything just as close to the original as possible. And so I actually will be rebuilding that Barney from the ground up, and we'll be trying to improve. Um, there are future plans as well to possibly build even the entire trio, to build Bebop and BJ.
Nice.
I don't know when, just because that's it's time. I mean, clearly, even just doing this like took a lot of doing schedule wise and
Yeah.
whatnot, and then also like just money. Like
For
you have a nice fund, because honestly, like the original Barney suit was about $10,000 to make, but I managed to split it into about five.
Wow. That's
And but I mean, like, so I mean, I use like pretty decent materials, while other studios. I am so sorry, my cat is getting in the way. Get
no,
down.
that's fine.
Oh my god. Okay, my bad.
No, you're okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, so there are plans. I've even actually gotten as far as like sculpting the body for Baby Bop. So that way, like, once I do find the time and money to actually start such a project, yeah, I would like to actually take an attempt at building a Baby Bop.
Wow, that would be really cool. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I
I
mean, there's so much
I,
I would like.
I have this one here. I had a guy build it, I think almost 10 years ago now.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I've just had it forever. That's just the head because the body's in another area. But yeah, I haven't seen as many, and I had him custom this one. Like he had one that didn't look, you knew it was Baby Bop, but it didn't look much like Baby Bop. And
Yeah.
so I had him tweak things that I wanted to look more like the actual costume. So I've hung on to that for about 10 years. So I don't think I'll ever part with it because it's just cool to have. And you don't really
Is,
see many other ones.
is it to scale, or is it more to fit like a full adult? Or is it short?
It's shorter, so it's meant to fit someone. It's not as tall as my I'm not gonna come around. Sorry, it's not as tall as my Barney costume that I have, which is about that like that one size fits all adult kind of thing. I had to make that one a little bit shorter so that like a kid or someone smaller can fit it, instead of it being like this tall Baby Bop costume. So it is a lot shorter than what, and it was shorter than what he initially was. He was building them all as one size fits all kind of things, and so that was one of my requests too, was to make it smaller so it'll appear smaller next to like the Barney costume.
Right. Okay. Well, that's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. No. Yeah. I'd probably be trying to build mine more to scale and whatnot.
yeah, for sure.
Which it's gonna be interesting doing those two, because now I really have to go off of like really nothing for this
Yeah.
one.
Mhm.
I mean, okay, the one thing I do have is scale, at least, because now that I have Barney, I can compare the size now, like from her to Barney.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So
Are you basing it off of the scale of like Jeff Ayres when he did Baby Bop, or like because the later version, the last version where Lauren Mayo played her, she was a lot smaller than what Jeff Ayres Baby Bop was. If you could tell that like she was a little bit smaller, it seemed, than what Baby Bop had been throughout the rest of the series.
no, I think mine would be more of Jeff Ayres.
Yeah.
Like primarily like all like both Baby Bop and BJ. I kind of like since my Barney came up so close to like 1994, I probably would go ahead and just have a more concrete, look just to make them make them all match for their times.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So I'd probably do the 1994 version of those characters as well.
Nice. That's awesome. Another question, when we're talking about these costumes and these plush dolls or the TV show dolls, do you have a favorite of both? Do you have a favorite costume iteration of Barney and also a favorite TV plush doll that you like that stands above the rest of them to you?
The costume, my favorite costume, I have to say either would be the 1994 costume or the 1995.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like that's where the look was just really at its prime, and I think it overall worked the best. I think the jaw, could have worked a little better, but just its overall look, I think was just a solid Barney. I think costumes afterwards, from season 4 onward, where for me it was I didn't like the fact that the eyes popped out more. I feel like the fact that the eyes were more in the skull made him feel more real, that he was a real creature.
For sure.
That's what I really liked. But with the eyes popping out more, it feels more like a cartoon character.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. And it kind of almost takes away the obviously Barney didn't make many, he couldn't make facial expressions, but I agree with what you said, where those older versions did kind of feel more real, because even with the little small things of the eyes moving, from Barney moving and having those eyes be able to move and those kind of things, that obviously got lost later on in the years, I think really does take away from the realness of that character, for sure.
Yeah. Because since the eyes are so far out, it doesn't leave any room for the eye mechanism anymore, because then the joints for the mechanism would be exposed.
Yeah, exactly.
So you would have to have those eyes sunken in a bit more to put them back in.
Right, for sure. When it comes to the studio plush, I think I probably know what your favorite one is, but which one is your favorite?
My favorite is the doll used from 1993 through 1995.
That's what I thought it would be.
Literally, I've actually counted how many I've made of just that particular doll. Mm-hmm. I've made about 13 so far of that one.
Wow, really?
Literally right now I have one that I'm working on right now.
Nice. It looks pretty close to that doll too.
Yeah, it's a learning process. This one's not completely done. The eyes are not even attached yet. Mm-hmm. But it takes real craftsmanship. This is all machine sewn and everything. Yeah. Except for the teeth. The teeth, I've been having problems with my machine lately, and so I just went ahead. I've been hand stitching them in.
Gotcha.
For the time. But it makes a really clean look for the teeth.
It does. It looks really just what I can see.
Yeah, and then just a little creative choice that I've made is that the original dolls used a craft foam for the teeth.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, which I think is really resourceful for just helping it be so perfect. Mm-hmm. But for when people have bought these dolls, of course, and everything. And so I always wanted to make sure that these dolls last,
right?
Especially if they be given to a kid. So I felt it'd be better to change up the materials that I use to make them last better, so they don't get stretched out or it doesn't tear or anything.
For sure.
So I use a white vinyl, which is almost like leather.
Yeah,
it's like a thin, smooth leather that I just fold in half and then stitch that in. Mm-hmm. So it keeps a nice look to it without risking it tearing and whatnot.
That's awesome. I love it. Before we end this here today, one thing that we always do here on this podcast is we ask our guests to bring on an item or some items that they own that are Barney related, that they hold near and dear to them, maybe above the other things that they might own. Can you share with us what you have today and just a little backstory on why you chose those items?
All right. Okay. So I'm gonna do. Let's see. I'm gonna grab these two first. So I have these two little guys.
Nice.
is one of those old I Love You Barneys. You know, we squish them, they say, I love you. This one's just a normal little plush. These guys, the reason why I chose these guys is because these actually are my only two remaining toys from my childhood.
Really?
They're my only two. Unfortunately, over time, like one reason or another, they just both got lost. They all just got lost to time.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, I had over 20, almost 30 of these things.
Wow.
And but then, you know, one after the other, I just, for some reason, they got lost, either thrown away or during a move, they just get mixed up and whatnot. And so after all these years, yeah, these are the only two that I have left from my childhood.
Wow.
But I have, you know, of course, have like the Dakin and the gun doll. But I mean, like, you know, those are cool to have. But I mean, I didn't grow up with those.
Yeah.
And then, yes. And then I'm going to set these down. But then the one that really means the most to me entirely, I'm so sorry.
No, you're okay.
God dang it. The one that means the most to me is my original 3D printed Barney doll.
Yeah.
The reason why is because this little guy really got me out of funk that I was in back in 2020. As we all know, 2020 was not exactly, you know, a great year.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, and I love building. I love crafting. I love arts and crafts. Like, I used to be working for like months at a time, just working on one thing every single day from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep. But during 2020, I just really lost that spark. You know, I lost the motivation to really work on anything. To where, like, even when this was also during the time when I was building the big Barney, the Barney costume. And that was one of the reasons why it took 3 years to build, was because it because like I would go out to my studio and I would try to work. I'd work for like 5-10 minutes, and then I was just like, I'll do it some other time, do it tomorrow, whatnot. And I just couldn't do it. But so my birthday came around, and my bosses at work actually got me a 3D printer, which is the printer I still use today.
Yeah.
And so this doll had already been sculpted in the computer the year prior. So I went ahead and I decided to, since I had that printer, I decided to give it a try, start working on it. I printed this out piece by piece, and just seeing it print out, you know, really excited me, honestly, just because like I got to see this thing just being built without having to use my hands. It was just, I got to, you know, I did half the work, and then the machine did the other half for me. And so I guess once this thing was fully printed, I put the skin on and everything, and, you know, made the eyes and all that. And, you know, this is what I came out with.
Yeah.
And it meant a lot to me that, like, coincidentally, yeah, a Barney doll really got me out of my funk, to where like I found my motivation again. I got that spark again to just keep working on stuff.
Yeah.
And so even when times have gotten tough and I've had to sell my stuff, I've always made sure not to sell this guy, because it means too much to me. It's too sentimental for that kind of reason. Like, you know, you go to a place dark and this kind of just brings you out of it. So yeah, it was really nice. So it means the world to me, right? Really.
That's awesome. I think that's a little bit of that Barney magic that I think we always hear like the cast and crew talk about, or just people in general, where Barney just kind of touches you in a way where it just helps you. You know, he happens to come along, it seems, all the time at the right time in your life when you need a character like that, or a little bit of the love that he shared in that moment. So that's really cool. That I like that story to that doll, and it is one of the best made ones. Obviously, with a 3D printer, you got to get a little bit more accurate with it. So it looks really, really nice. But that's a great story. And I can understand why you would hang on to that one more than the rest. It has a little bit more of a sentimental value to it, especially with how our year had gone throughout 2020. So that's awesome. So before we end this here, I'll just ask you, why Barney? Why do you think Barney resonated with you? Why do you think the world needs a character like this dinosaur that shares the love and the messages that he do? Why do you think he's so important?
I mean, I think Barney's just so important because he was just kind of like the light in a dark tunnel that like was, our past. I mean, like, as far as being, the life of a kid and how parents treated their kids back then, like something as simple as just being told I love you was just very like not as common.
Yeah.
And so like I think Barney was just the fact that he was just someone who showed like unconditional love and whatnot, just really speaks to a lot of people. I think he just kind of reminds people of a simpler time, like
for sure,
where like, you can let go of a lot of your stress and anxiety of the real world and just let it go for a little bit, just play around with your imagination and just make people feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of the reasons why Barney, like, I grew up away from Barney for a few years, but I came back, because originally it was for my little brother, but the longer I kind of worked with the character, the more I kind of remembered like why I love that character so much. Was just like he really is and has always been like the perfect friend for anybody. He consists of the most positive aspects of humanity. And I think that's why he's so important, that a character like him is important, because the world's just full of so much negativity. So I mean, the fact that you just have one friend that can show the world so much positivity, I think is a really awesome thing.
Definitely. I agree. I think that's a great way to end this episode today. Thank you so much, Orian, for being on here. It's been a real pleasure to be able to talk to you somewhat in person and hear about your inspirations behind the crafts that you make, your history with Barney. We'll have to connect with you again some point down the line and dive a little bit deeper into some conversations. But I truly thank you for being on here. Thank you everybody for watching the Spots of Love podcast. Love yourselves, love others, and hopefully we can see you in your spot of love. Take care.
Bye, everybody.